All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. My name is Hannah Crapote. I'm the Content Marketing Manager at Certiport. We're so happy to have you join us for our third and final Month of Swift webinar today. This presentation is being recorded, so if you have questions, feel free to drop those into the Q&A in the chat feature, since you'll notice you are muted. But we will make sure to send the full recording to all of our registrants at the end of our presentation this afternoon. Today, our topic is preparing higher education students for the app economy, and we'll be working and learning with Bill Skripchek. Bill is a management consultant and educator working to help businesses and communities successfully leverage mobile technology. He is currently the president of WaveWriter Trading Technologies Incorporated, which develops machine learning models to help identify profitable trading strategies in the currency futures market. Bill is also the co-chair of the Computers and Digital Media Department and an instructor of mobile application development at McHenry County College in Illinois. While at McHenry County College, he has developed an accredited AS degree in mobile design and development and taught classes in mobile app development, the Swift programming language, Kotlin, Python, AI, machine learning, augmented reality, computer literacy, digital legalities, and project management. So he's more than qualified to guide us through this discussion today, and we're very excited to be able to learn from him. But before we get started with our conversation with Bill, I will go ahead and pass it to Sabrina, our program manager for the Swift program here at Certiport, to give us a brief overview into the Swift program.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Hannah. I really appreciate being able to give an overview of the program today. Could you allow me to share my screen really quick?
Let me do that really quickly. Yeah, no problem. Okay, I will go ahead and make you a co-host. You should be able to do that now.
Okay. Let's see, share. All right, can you see my screen okay?
I can, looks great.
Awesome, great. As Hannah mentioned, my name is Sabrina Beck. I am the product manager for the app development with Swift certification program here at Certiport. And I want to share with you just a brief overview and the updates that we've made to the program. For those of you who have joined us for our prior webinars will recognize this information. So when Apple launched the App Development with Swift program in 2018, the Swift Level 1 exam aligned with the App Development with Swift course available at the time and with Xcode 10. Since 2018, Xcode has seen new releases bring new features and functionalities to app developers. Xcode 12 is the most current release. Last summer, Apple released a new Develop in Swift curriculum, restructuring the course material from the App Development with Swift curriculum into two courses. The first course, Develop in Swift Fundamentals, teaches learners fundamental iOS app development skills and helps them build basic fluency in Xcode source and UI editors. The second course, Develop in Swift Data Collections, builds on that knowledge by teaching learners the tools they need to build more complex and capable apps. Both courses are intended to be taught in a single semester in higher ed courses or in a full year in high school. They also support the scope and sequence of the Develop in Swift development courses. So let's take a look at the new app development courses. Develop in Swift is a comprehensive coding offering from Apple for ages 14 and up. The curriculum prepares students for college or a career in app development using the Swift programming language. It's complemented with free online professional learning for educators and certification for students, and it's made all possible with Mac. All books are available for download on Mac in the Apple Bookstore, and you can reach that at apple.co.co/teaching code. So earlier this year, we announced the release of 2 new app development with Swift certification exams that align with the new curriculum and with Xcode 12. The app development with Swift user exam aligns with the Develop in Swift Fundamentals curriculum. Based on Xcode 12, It certifies candidates have the knowledge of core concepts and practices that professional Swift programmers use on a daily basis. The app development with Swift certified user exam and practice tests are available now, as well as localizations in Chinese simplified and Spanish, which just released this week. The second exam we announced, the App Development with Swift Associate, is a new exam to the Develop in Swift certification portfolio. Based on Xcode 12 and aligned with the Develop in Swift Explorations curriculum, it is designed to certify knowledge of the impact of computing and apps on society, economies, and cultures, all while exploring iOS app development. This exam is available now, and Chinese simplified and Spanish exams and practice tests will be available November of this year. To check out any exams that we currently have available and the release schedule for announced exams and upcoming practice tests, you can visit our exam detail page at certiport.com/product. These new courses and exams are designed to help high school and higher education students earn recognition for their Swift knowledge. Explorations is designed to help learners with little to no computer science background learn to code with the Swift programming language. It is ideal for high school students exploring computer science tracks, but can also be taught in higher ed as a course for non-computer science majors or as an elective. Fundamentals in Data Collections is designed for learners who possess basic coding knowledge and experience and want to build their app development skills. Both courses can be taught, whoops, I screwed up. Anyway, both courses can be taught in high school, but these really, we tend to see these courses taught predominantly in higher ed for computer science majors. And regardless of the pathway students follow, by the time they complete data collections, they should have the skills to produce their own app, one that may even surface in the App Store. So with that, I will turn the time back over to you, Hannah, and to Bill for some Q&A.
Wonderful, Sabrina. Thank you so much for that introduction. I think that helps us all get on the same page. Hopefully we have some attendees who have really had this drilled in now that they've attended all of our webinars, but we'll dive into the discussion. I think we'll be able to see this course content come to life. So Bill, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so grateful to have you. I know I gave you a little bit of a brief introduction, but we would like to start out just having you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with app development.
Sure, no problem. Can I share my screen as well?
Yes, give me just 1 second. There we go. Go ahead.
All right, so I'm going to share this little, I only have one slide, so don't worry. Hi, I'm Bill Skripchak. I basically wanted to go through this stuff and kind of give you sort of a down in the trenches kind of overview of all the stuff these ladies are talking about. And I'll start with my experience so you just get a feel where I came from. I'll try to keep it really brief. I came from the corporate world. I spent over 30 years in corporate America. I worked for a bunch of different companies. My undergraduate degree was in electronic engineering. Somewhere in the middle of that 30 years, I went back and got a master's in business. I started out in the medical electronics and security business, designing hardware based controllers and things of that nature, if you're familiar with that kind of stuff. And that's really where my coding experience started, because a lot of my the products that I was developing had read-only memory in them, for those of you guys who are hardware people out there. So I would have to write code at the machine code level to make my gadgets do what I wanted them to do. Over time, I progressed and moved through a bunch of different computer companies, a couple of pretty decent names you might recognize there, Apple Computer and Sun Microsystems. I was in various technical and then executive and upper level executive positions in those companies. I finished what I always call my last real job at Comdisco. They were an international technology leasing company. They were the largest in the world. And I ran what was called the open systems business there. That was basically anything that ran the Unix operating system. I always had the bug to be an entrepreneur. So right around the year 2000, I started a company. It was called Next Use Technology Services, but I had the problem that everybody else has. I had no money. So I had to go out and I had to raise venture capital. I raised $2 million. And I went into business with a gentleman by the name of JB Hunt. I don't know if you know him or not, but if you've ever seen the trucks on the highway with the yellow stripe on the side, that's JB's company. He was a billionaire trucking mogul, and he was bored and had a lot of money, and he liked my ideas, so he helped get my company started up. We did traditional technology services, networking services, hardware repair, a lot of custom software stuff. So I had a lot of coding experiences in there as well. That was when I first actually started to get into app development, because Apple had just announced the iPhone and introduced a bunch of tools in order to develop applications. And that's when I started tinkering around with it, because I needed an app for my business, and there was virtually nobody that knew how to do it back then. So I had to figure it out myself. So I ended up doing that and getting a lot of experience there. I tried to retire around 2012, but I was terrible at that. So I started a second career in higher education and simultaneously started two companies. This one with the red line is I started a little bit later, but WaveWriter Trading Technologies is purely me just being, a nerd and enjoying technology. I've developed a machine learning model that takes a look at the financial market, specifically the currencies futures market, and tells you basically when to get in and out of the market. That has spawned off several businesses, an asynchronous training program to help people learn how to trade, a signals technology business, and I do still take on the occasional coaching or mentorship from people. I also started a company called Mobile Pathways. This is right down your wheelhouse that you're interested in here. This company, what I do is I work with workforce development companies and educational institutions, and I provide them a private label curriculum and app development. I actually just got finished last week teaching about 37 kids from inner city schools in Chicago how to write apps through this particular program. But let's talk about McHenry County College, because that's what you came for. So like I said, I started a second career and I went through the normal phases of this. First, McHenry hired me as an adjunct instructor. Then they found out I knew how to write apps, and that was something that they wanted to get into. So they then quickly hired me as a consultant for a year. And then at the end of that year, they hired me full time. As part of my consultancy, I worked with the folks over at McHenry, and we acquired a National Science Foundation grant for about $250,000. And we started to develop the AAS degree in mobile app design and development. There is a design aspect of our degree that is pretty important. Now, remember, this is around 2012, and if you were paying attention to the slides, the curriculum came out in 2018. So there was virtually nothing that existed when I started, so we had to build it from scratch. One of the things that we were able to do, or basically everything over here on the right is what the curriculum consists of. So what we have our students do is they go through 3 courses, App Dev 1, App Dev 2, and App Dev 3. Originally, I had to write the curriculum all myself, but since then I've been lifting a lot of the curriculum from the Swift, the Apple curriculum that they've built for me, because I don't know if you guys have all probably had to build some curriculum somewhere sometime. You all realize just what amount of work that is. And then in the software world, this is basically a moving target. The floor moves out from under you pretty much every semester. So you're back to square one. So just to have that as a resource that you can go back to and have other people that are keeping that all up to date is a godsend. So My curriculum now consists of some of the basic stuff that I started and invented myself, and a lot of the stuff that Apple is providing for me. So if you haven't already, take a look at it. It's really good stuff. So as far as the curriculum is concerned, we try to provide a very broad-based experience for our students. Like I said, it's an AppDev 1, AppDev 2, AppDev 3 course. In the first course, they learn the underlying language, which is the Swift programming language. In the second course, I have them write about 16 different little I call them mini apps. So they learn how to use, they learn how to play a video, they learn how to play a sound. They learn how to create a small database and put information into it. Things of that nature. I try to throw everything at them that I can think of that they might run into in the wild, so that they've at least had a little bit of experience in that area and they know what it is when they encounter it. In addition to the regular coding, they do also get training in the design and UI aspect of it. There's some classes that we have them take so that they get a good grounding in that particular area as well. So they're not just a coder. They have some design experience as well. And then we do extensive work in Agile project management and remote repositories or GitHub repositories. The reason for all of this, I'm going to explain in a second, but I just want to finish getting through the curriculum. So Agile project management is a very popular, if not the most popular project management flavor that is used and predominantly in the software development world. And GitHub repositories and the ability to understand and use remote repositories in a team is is also very popular and important in getting the correct credentials for when you're done. We use Slack. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but Slack is like chat on steroids. You can chat back and forth. We've made a huge transition to online training this last year, as everybody has with COVID. And Slack has been a really useful tool for me to simulate the interaction that I used to have in the classroom. I normally have all three sections of the class, of the different classes in one room, so that the people who are brand new can commiserate with the people who are going through the capstone class, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of interaction, and I really am big on learning how to work with, your neighbors and all that stuff, because in the real world, that's pretty much the way it works. So in order to get the degree, they have to have a published app, and that's pretty much what they work on in the third class, is getting that app all put together and built and get it all shined up and get it published in the Apple App Store. They usually will come up with the idea, though, in the very first class where they're just learning to start the code. The great thing about the Swift certifications, by the way, is it's kind of like the cherry on top of everything else now. So we are going to begin offering the certifications in the spring in our curriculum as part of the overall mobile development program. I was one of the authors of the new test, so we think we did a pretty good job on that test. Hopefully you guys will think that as well. I'm trying to address all the questions that I got here in advance, make sure I covered them all. Have you hosted an app showcase or coding club? What we have been doing are coding competitions where we have all of the local high schools come from the area and compete in a coding competition. So that's one area. Oh, and that's one thing I did forget to tell you guys about, especially in higher education. The demographic of my typical student is pretty much 50-50. I have the traditional 19-year-old, 20-year-old-ish kind of a student who's just getting into the program and wants to either become an app developer or take my courses and then go to a 4-year college. Or they're what I call an adult learner that already has some pretty extensive experience and also usually has some higher degrees, but they want to come back and get a more relevant skill or a more current skill. So I get a lot of those, and those mostly are stay-at-home moms that are trying to get back into the workforce that were coders or something in the past. So I get quite a bit of those. So this little branch down here, the business advisory panel, this was a requirement for us to get the NSF grant. We had to create and maintain this panel. And this is basically, it's grown to almost a dozen companies now. These are companies like Dow Chemical, Apple Computer, Lex Tech, some regional, what I would call sort of medium-sized software development companies. I don't know if you're aware, but I live in Wisconsin, just over the border, but Chicago is not even an hour away from where I live. And the Loop, the downtown area of Chicago, has become a very hot area for getting seed capital and venture capital for technology startups. There's an organization called Built in Chicago, if you're interested, that can get you connected with that whole thing. Anyway, we had to create this panel. We built this up. We meet with them once a semester or once a quarter if you're a business person. And we work on these basic things. We ask them to guidance in our curriculum. We talk to them about trends in the industry. And of course, we ask them if they will host internships and apprenticeships. So right now, I've graduated maybe 36 kids out of our program. And well, they're not kids. Some of them are adults. And I have 100% employment of my students, okay? And I kind of owe that to this relationship with the businesses. So if there is a way that you can do this at your school and in your area, this is kind of the keys to the puzzle here. That started with just me leveraging a lot of my old business relationships, but it has since grown just kind of by word of mouth, and Apple has helped introduce people into it. And so this next semester is the first semester that I'm actually going to add a graduate student to my panel. He's a gentleman that just created a business that it's an app that has sensing technology on like Amazon trucks and Ryder trucks and things of that nature to tell you when the door that goes up in the back, up and down in the back is worn out and needs service. And he has closed 2 giant deals, one with Ford Motor Company and one with Amazon. So I figured that earns him a seat on my panel so he can tell me, and I twisted his arm and he's going to hire some interns for me too. So that's what that's all about there. So what advice would you give teachers building a new app development or coding class? Oh, one more thing I almost forgot. We also created a program with the local high schools for dual credit. So my first course, App Dev 1, is being taught by one of our local high schools. And then they get that credit. They're immediately, that credit is immediately accepted into our program. So they basically start, they hit the ground running when they get to my program. They're in the second class when they start. So that's been really exciting. That's been about a year's worth of work. And this semester we have 2 full sections of students in the high school in the App Dev program. So that's going to do nothing but grow. The other high schools around them have noticed, and they're starting to ask them questions, how did you do that? What that entailed was me training 2 instructors from that high school. They went through my entire curriculum and they got the degree. Then they go back. So then they're qualified to go back and teach that first course. And that makes all the college, gods happy so that they can keep track of and give credit for the students when they come into the program. So I believe I have covered everything you wanted me to cover. And I'll open it up to questions, I guess.
Awesome, Bill. Thank you. I'm actually going to dive deeper into some of the topics that you shared, if that's okay.
Sure, no problem.
So you mentioned that you leverage Swift explorations along with a lot of other resources for your curriculum.
Yes.
What are your favorite parts of the Swift explorations course? What are you using specifically in your class?
Well, I use so many different chunks of it. It's hard to say which part is specifically, but I'll tell you what I like about the program the best. One of the things that I do in my classes is they have to, I will introduce a concept, and then I will have the students do an exercise using or utilizing that particular concept. But then I will ask them to write a little app on their own. I'll say, you know, I taught you how to write a function. So now here's an exercise so you can practice, so you can make sure you understand what it is that I'm blabbing about. And then now go write a little app using that function. So what the chunks out of your curriculum, the Apple curriculum that I really like is I can take that and that can be my little exercise in the middle. But the doing it and having to come up with something on your own is critical thinking. And that is a key thing that my advisory panel is constantly asking me for. I need critically, I can find good techie people, okay? What I can't find is good techie people that can think critically and, for lack of a better term, play nice together on a team, okay? And the play nice stuff all comes from, you know, working in Agile and the repositories. We do, in the more advanced classes, we do weekly, if you're familiar with Agile, it's called sprints, but the easy way to understand is code reviews. So you have to stand up, present your code, explain what you're trying to build, take input from your peers, take criticism from your peers, which for some isn't always that easy, right? And then just the act of standing up and presenting for a lot of them is terrifying. But they, you know, it's fun to watch the way they blossom. They start out and it looks like they're going to cry when I make them do that. And then by the end of the program, I can't get them to shut up. So and those are the kinds of things that these businesses are all asking for. So that's why they're so happy to look at our students when they have opportunities over there. But as far as addressing your problem, the exercises in there are structured that way too.
Awesome.
I believe when I was talking to Tori, who's the lady at Apple, when she was showing me the first time, I said, you put a bug in my office because you're copying what I've been doing, you know? So yeah, I really like that stuff. It's really useful and very easy to use.
So it sounds like you're leveraging the course content along the way. And I saw in your graphic that you, of course, are planning to leverage the certification with your students here in the upcoming semesters. But why do you think certifying the skills that you're teaching is so important?
Well, it depends on your audience. Okay, if you want to be an attorney, you need to pass the bar. If you want to be an accountant, you got to take the CPA test, etc. If you want to be a network security guy, you got to pass that NAACP, if I got the numbers or letters right. If a lot of it depends on the companies, right? So the larger, more structured companies, they have a lot of process in place. So for them, the certification is important. They want that cert. They want that little extra cherry on top of everything else that says, not only did you get through the whole program, but you passed this really hard test, right? Kind of a thing. So that's what I'm seeing, at least from my panel. Now, smaller companies, they like that. They think they're getting a bargain if they have somebody with the certification and everything else in there, but they're not as rigid about having to have it, kind of a thing. So those are the kind of the two ends of the spectrum that I see. I just wanted to add it just to get that check box checked, right? Because I got a little bit of that in the past. Well, you know, is there any kind of professional certification? So now we have that. So now all of the objections, at least from my department, have been addressed.
Yeah. So it helps with communicating with your higher level collegiate advisors as well as with the companies that the students are looking to apply to. Right. Okay. I love that. So one of the things you mentioned that I thought was so impressive is that you've had 100% job placement with your students. Do all of them go on to work in app development, or where are they leveraging these skills that you're teaching in your classroom?
So my students, like I said, the path seems to be either they're taking my curriculum so they can go get a 4-year degree somewhere else, right? But most of them, because we're pretty much a learn something, go to work kind of college.
Yep.
Most of them want to go right into industry. And because of some of the relationships that I've started to develop, that's getting easier and easier to do. The only challenge that I have is I'm in McHenry County, and the school's in McHenry County in Illinois. And if you're familiar with that area in Illinois, there's nothing there but cornfields and tool and die shops, right? So we do have to broaden our horizons a little bit when it comes to where might these students go. The good news is Chicago is just right down the street, and there's tons of opportunity in Chicago. There was one. So there's another thing that I'm glad you asked this, because I just thought of this. One of the things that has started to happen, and it was starting to happen before COVID, but COVID just was like tipped the ball into the hoop. We are having people out of state discover our program. Okay, so one of the first people that I ever graduated from the program, her name is Emily Rayner. She's been graduated about 2 years now. She was in Tyler, Texas when she found our curriculum, and I think she's about 26 years old now. So she was probably like 21 or 22 when she started with us. She literally packed up all her stuff into her car, drove to Illinois, found an apartment, and signed up for our program. Because that's what she wanted to do. She wanted to learn how to write apps. She was a superstar, I have to admit. And a lot of what happens with these apprenticeships and internships is I'll have like the executive or whomever is on my panel, or somebody that they have call me, and they'll say, "Who's your star?" And we have an opportunity, who's your star student? And I usually only have like a couple of those, right? Because that's my reputation on the line if I refer a student to the company. But Emily was one of the ones that I referred. They gave her an internship. They then hired her over the summer, because this was between, she was going to graduate at the end of the following fall semester. So they hired her over the summer as a part-time employee. And then I plotted with the VP of development over there, and we arranged to have her job offer given to her on my phone in front of her parents at graduation.
Wow.
And what's happening is the school is starting to get a reputation for the degree. So more and more people are calling me and saying, tell us about us, tell us about your students. Do you have other people, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about the relationships, right? It's just, we're helping to provide them with a road to at least get you started, right? I can't claim that, they're gonna, become the next president of Amazon or whatever. But at least we can get them started. And I believe that our program is rooted in reality, what you're going to really encounter, how they're going to treat you in the marketplace, et cetera, et cetera. And the students really appreciate that. And I bring in people to talk to them all the time, out of industry and stuff like that, so they can ask questions about what it's like out there. And then because they end up with so much critical thinking experience by the end of the program, they're pretty good of, getting out of the, what do they call those rooms? They lock you in there and you got to figure out how to get out. So, they're really good at solving problems when they get out of my program. And that's what employers want.
I love that. So I have a couple follow-up questions to what you've been sharing. The first is, you've talked a lot about your connection to industry, which I think is so relevant and important, especially for IT, as things are changing constantly. Technology is evolving, and so it makes your job as an educator very difficult, I'm sure. But how do you start those connections with industry if we have some educators who are attending this webinar who might not have those relationships? What's the best place for them to start to be able to get feedback on what they can do or change in their program to make it more successful for their students.
Free food. That works really good. No, seriously, if you go, I'm sure all of the schools have somebody that's job it is to mingle, commiserate, I don't know what the right word is,
Sure.
with the local community. And then there's, the chambers of commerce, et cetera. I think if you just do good marketing of what you have available, a lot of these people come to us. I get unsolicited phone calls for, hey, do you have somebody who could help me write an app for my business or something like that? I get tons of that stuff, right? And that's just that's how you start those relationships. That's how you get things started.
Sure.
You got to remember the people who are in the senior positions at a lot of these companies are old like me. They have Gandalf hair, right? So, and not everybody's an engineer. They know, because they're good business people, that they need this technology and they need this for their business, but they don't know how to do it. So if you can provide that bridge for them as a educator in higher education. Also, the cool thing about higher education is you can host these events where you can get a bunch of businesses to come in together to just kind of chat about, what's going on, what are the trends, what are you doing? And like I said, the free food thing's a great lure. They will come in for that free food. Like some of the things that we found, industry trends. One of the most interesting trends we found just recently in the last meeting we had right before summer break was all the really good people want to be remote. Okay. And this was a big issue because you have those traditional companies. No, you have to physically be here. You can't be remote. You got to be in that desk. I got to be able to see you. And then there were the medium and small, the nimble startups, and they're like, who cares? They can be in Colombia for all I care. As long as they can do the work, and they keep up with the deadlines. So that's the kind of stuff. And you can have an event to share that. Cause I just know from when I was running businesses, when you're in your business, that's all consuming. You usually don't have time to find out what's going on in the world. And if there's an easy way for you to do that, and it's the local community college or the university down the street, and they're hosting something that says, hey, come chat and eat, and we'll find out what's going on in the industry, kind of a thing. That's a really good way of doing it and starting to build.
I love that. Okay, well, we had a question submitted by one of our attendees. Why is Swift not popular in blockchain programming? What are your thoughts on this topic?
Why is Swift not popular in blockchain? I'm not that big of an expert in blockchain, but like the analogy that I'll give you is, I think it's the area of content or area of technology that you're talking about, and people tend to pick a language for that area that becomes the popular thing. And the only thing I know a lot about is artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So in that area, Python seems to be the chosen, language that everybody wants to use in that. If I knew more about blockchain, I would give you a better answer than that. Maybe Swift doesn't have some of the features and low-level stuff that you would need to code up the blockchain. But yeah, I'm not going to go out on a limb. I don't know that much about it, so I don't want to make stuff up.
That's all right. Well, I wanted to give you a chance to share. I mean, you've shared a lot of insight, which I think is wonderful. But before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, what advice would you give to teachers who are maybe building their program from scratch, or who are looking to expand their coding classes into either Swift technology or into any IT field? What's the best place for them to get started, or what resources would you recommend?
Well, the first thing I'd say is definitely leverage the Apple stuff, because it's going to save you a mountain of work. That's just common sense. You're going to have to spend a little bit of time learning it if you're not familiar with it, but if you've taught software coding, you'll pick it up pretty quick. That's really the biggest hurdle, because when I started in 2012, there was nothing. I had to do every single thing from scratch, and that was just so much work. I mean, it's all paying off now, but it took a long time. The Apple curriculum will kind of turbocharge it'll crush the time in which it takes you to get a valid program off the ground. Okay, that would be my advice.
Well, the Apple team will be very happy to hear you say that. So thank you so much, Bill, for all of your thoughts and expertise. Sabrina, any final product questions that we've been covering? I've seen you answer a few of them in the chat, or anything else you wanted to clarify before we wrap up.
So I would encourage everyone to visit our website. We have a lot of information about the new Develop and Swift certification programs, as well as links to the new curriculum. I did review all of that in the first webinar. So if you want to, I know it's been posted online, so you can go back and review that and see where to find all that information. But there's a lot of really cool tools that the Apple for Education team has developed and provided for educators to build their programs. So if you have any questions or about the program or the certifications, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, and I'll pop my email address in the chat.
Perfect.
Also, if any of you want to reach out to me, I'm all ears, no problem. I'm a little busy, but I'm happy to talk to you. I just dropped my email in the chat.
Wonderful, Bill. Thank you so much. That's a great offer. And we are so grateful for all of those who were able to attend our webinar today. Like Sabrina mentioned, we have our other resources posted on the Certiport YouTube page. So you're more than welcome to track those down and go through our previous webinars. We're grateful for you, Bill, Sabrina, for all of your expertise that you've shared with us this afternoon. We'll be sending out the recording to this webinar in the next few hours, so feel free to keep an eye on your inbox for that. And if you have any additional questions, make sure to respond to that email, and we'll get you in contact with our team to get those questions answered for you. Thanks, everyone.